Let me
Hey
see.
guys, Savage Joy here, live with Real Progressives. Tonight we have an exclusive. I am joined by Justin Stewart the Fourth from North Carolina and
Good evening, everybody.
Terrell Turner from PA.
Hey,
Um, Tonight is the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. So even though we should talk about racism more, we would be remiss to at least not discuss it today. Profile pics being changed and such only does so much. So this is a very important conversation to be had. Guys, do you want to just introduce yourselves a little? Terrell, do you want to just give a little heads up who you are and where you're from, all that fun stuff?
fun stuff. Yes. Well, my name is Terrell Turner. I'm originally a Baltimorean, moved up to Pennsylvania. Noticed differences in a democratically controlled state and a Republican controlled state. When you look on the broader spectrum, things just pretty much weren't that different. There's some small differences, but a lot more can be done. More about me. Uh, After the 2016 election, I decided to, take a shot at it and try to run for office. I didn't win, but I was able to achieve the highest Democratic turnout in Southern York County and Stewartstown in a run for mayor, which was pretty cool, which shows the progression we can make here. But ever since I've thrown my hat in, I volunteer with Put People First. We advocate for healthcare as a human right. And from Bernie's movement, we started something called the East Wind Project. It's a non-partisan political organization that we help progressives run. And I will say at the moment, I'm very excited that we have Jess King in our district. That's a really big win. I would like to see Scott Perry out, but that's neither here nor there. But that's who I am. Thanks.
And hello, everybody. Y'all should know me, and if not, I'm Justin. Currently in California, San Diego to be exact, but I am based on the East Coast, North Carolina.
Justin,
I think he ran away from his Wi-Fi connection.
yeah, Justin, don't be doing that. You know better than that. You go on Be Live all the time. Oh, Justin, you're killing me. So anyway, we'll wait till he gets back. But so what else is we've met in person. We met the last time Bernie was in the area, and we immediately clicked because you're so positive online. Oh, I'm sorry, Justin. You cut out. Stop walking outside.
Yeah.
I totally
You want to
forgot
finish
about
your
a
introduction?
Wi-Fi connection and not necessarily my phone. Joy, are you still there?
Yep, I'm
No,
still
Joy
here.
is not back with us.
We didn't hear a lot of your
Uh-oh.
introduction, Justin.
I totally screwed that one up.
Yeah, you
Stay
ran
put.
away from your router is my assumption.
Right. Uh-oh. Joy, are you coming back? What do we do? I'm lost.
I'm here. You're live. Just give your introduction. All we got was you're
Yes.
currently in
We
California.
can't go on
You're
without her, can we?
what's that?
Uh-oh. That's just terrible. How did I do that?
Can you hear me, Justin?
Uh,
Oh dear.
Man, why did I do that one? Maybe she have to restart the show. Yikes. Are we still live?
We're
Yes, and
still
our
live,
audience is growing
buddy.
by the second. So we're talking.
Yeah,
Okay, we can't proceed without Joy.
Well,
no,
George,
I'm here.
it's you. It's you,
Oh,
man.
so no, she's not responding to me. I can hear you, but I can't, I don't have a signal from her.
Oh, really?
Do you
Can
have a
you
signal
tell
from Joy?
him to just exit and come back in?
Just exit and she said that just exit and come back in. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so one thing that I took to you immediately was because you're so positive. And every time I'd get discouraged and say, F this, I give up, it's too stressful and stuff, you'd be like, no, you're not giving up. And you're just very positive and very resilient. And you're just a very good, genuine person. And that's
Well, I
not
appreciate that.
common. Justin, can you hear me now?
I can. Forgive me, you guys. I totally forgot that I'm on the Wi-Fi and not on phone.
How?
And I walked outside.
Yeah.
So we have this, so I'm actually babysitting Danielle's little baby chicks. And so I have them running around the backyard, but there's a hawk that's circling ahead, so I'm trying to keep an eye on them. And
Aww.
I totally forgot about the Wi-Fi signals, but I put them up already.
So you want to just give us a little idea of who you are, Justin, and
Yeah.
your background?
So I'm like your number one fan. I think I'll start off on that, and I'm like so honored to be here with the prestigious Joy. I mean, you've interviewed the best of them, right? So when you reached out to me and requested that I join your show, I was like, absolutely. Yep, go ahead and lock me in. I'm a civic activist out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm currently in San Diego, California, where I'm assisting Danielle St. John in her bid for Congress for California's 49th Congressional District. Long story short, I'm no more or less than the next man, just trying to do my part in my neck of the woods to continue this revolution that we all started out upon.
Awesome. So, given this day and the historical, prominence of it, since it's been 50 years, which just doesn't even seem possible because he's still so relevant today. After 50 years, what are your feelings today? What do you think about on days like today, on these anniversaries?
Who's that? Oh, is that for me?
Yes, Terrell, you can start.
Oh well, I'll be completely honest because that's why we're here. It's pretty sad because growing up in the city, these are things and days like this aren't days that no attention is brought to it. So you have to grow and kind of look for it yourself. You don't have a lot of family. You don't have any type of system that, or even a school system that promotes it. Because pretty much after exempting the leap year after February 29th or 28th, whatever it goes, you don't even hear about anything. That's just done. You hear about his life and his death within the confines of February. So when you move on, it's like, oh, when did he die? You're like, oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. And, it's pretty sad that that's the case. Even when you brought it to even when you announced you were doing a show, and I was like, oh yeah, he did die on that day. So even in African American culture, we're really far removed from it, and it's really unfortunate because, like you said, it's only 50 years ago, and even though it doesn't seem like it should be that long ago, it's not at all. We still have family that are alive that remember it happening, and it has impacted them a lot. So I think it's pretty unfortunate, and I think I'm more sad at the occurrence of it not being brought to the forefront, not so much as, the event itself, but the fact that people have forgotten that doesn't have positive implications for a lot of things that happen moving forward.
Absolutely. Justin, how about yourself?
So I do take time out, and reflect upon all that became possible because of his selflessness, his sacrifice. I take time to, reflect upon the strain it must have placed upon his family at the time. I try to give the day solely to him, his movement. I don't really make a public spectacle of it, if that makes any sense, because it's basically the ultimate sacrifice, right? You believe in something so deep and you care about something so abstract yet so close, so near and dear to your heart, that I mean, you walk to the end of the earth for it, and that's essentially what he did, right? I mean, yesterday was the anniversary to the mountaintop speech, and you know, if you're if you appreciate American literature, American history, it's one of the greatest works of art known to mankind, where he laid out not only the objectives, uh, the hurdles and obstacles that are in the way of it, but also the plan of action that we embark upon to get there. Uh, so it's a very powerful day unto itself. And unfortunately, I don't think I always, you can blame youth, but didn't always give it the due, uh, I guess you can say, the consideration that it rightfully deserved. But like I said, I was young. I just, MLK, I mean, I have a dream, and then that was it. I move on to the next thing. But because my life took a turn towards activism, I'm able to better appreciate, even the small things of the civil rights movement, right? The letters of support that they would receive, not just Dr. King himself, but all of the unsung heroes of the civil rights movement and those who became more known throughout history.
Absolutely. Last week or so, we had the March for Our Lives with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Now, just like 2-3 days before that, we had Stephon Clark murdered, 8 shots in the back, 20 shots fired. Dude has a cell phone, did nothing wrong. How did it make you guys feel that wasn't addressed? Those marches were about shootings and people dying, but it was about school kids, and it wasn't integrated with, with what had just happened.
Well, do you mind me taking first?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Well, being completely fair, I'm okay with school kids being first and foremost to take the front on it, but if the issue is indeed, and it is, to address gun violence, for some reason, America hasn't grasped the fact that police shootings are a part of gun violence. There is a culture that exists within policing where that, when they shoot their gun, it's just a part of their job. They look at that as no different than me going to work and doing my job. So that's not included in gun violence, which is really, really unfortunate because just from looking at it, you don't, there's no justification for it. So the fact that it wasn't in the conversation, in some ways I'm okay with it, but I do believe that it deserves credence, and that should be, this should be a step-by-step thing. Okay, March for Our Lives. We need to get the guns out of school. We don't want to be arming teachers. I don't even know how that became a thing. But we also have to have the other. And there was a young African American girl that talked about that spoke about how many Black people are always killed and how Black people are always getting shot and how it's just a statistic and a number. There's never a big thing made about it. And I do appreciate that she took the opportunity for that. But everything should be a segue because every issue is connected, and that is no different. So, yes, protect our kids in school, absolutely. Because my kid's going to be in school soon, and I have a kid that's already in school. But we do have to broaden the conversation, and create more coalitions to keep things connected. So we can't let it stop there. We keep moving forward.
And you brought up arming teachers. As a Black man, if you were a teacher, would that make you feel safe? Like a shooter on the loose, you're a man of color, you're holding a gun. I mean, that's what a lot of people have concerns about.
I think, what's weird to me and is that a Black man with a gun is totally different than a white man with a gun. And no matter what the situation. So yeah, you can arm me with a gun as a teacher, but okay, where's it gonna stay? is it staying on me as a person? Is it my gun? Okay, and in that situation, I get pulled over. There's no disclaimer telling a police officer or anybody in that type of position that, hey, he's a teacher and he just has a gun because he's a teacher. You know what I mean? And you don't want to end up in the same situation as Philando Castile. You say, hey, I'm carrying, I have a license to carry, and right there you automatically become a greater threat. So, it doesn't bring me any more comfort, and I'm not an educator, but by every stretch of the imagination, if I was, I would not be encouraged to carry a gun. I know African American individuals that do carry guns, but that's for me, that's neither here nor there. The fact that I don't want one personally for myself is my right, just as much as it is their right to have one. Um, we can talk about, we can speak on the merits of how that should be approached and the way they have their guns, but that's a different conversation. The fact that I don't want one for my own personal safety does take the forefront in my mind.
Absolutely. Justin, how do you respond?
So I've I've been hearing that comparison a lot. Well, these are upper class white school children um, versus inner city um, black children, adults. It doesn't matter. But I guess I feel that no matter which way the issue is addressed, the solution umbrellas all of the individual segments of the population. Um, the domestic abuse victim, gun control affects their life. The inner city gangs, I don't like to say victims, but those who are impacted daily by gun violence through no fault of their own, they'll be impacted as well. So I think everybody should work towards the final product of whatever language emerges out of conference committee, and whether it's signed by the president or it's the veto is overridden by the 2/3 majority. So if you're Black Lives Matter, you have a stake in this, get involved. If you're March for Our Lives, you have a stake in this, get involved. Your narratives might be different, but as we start the closing on the end of the journey, we'll meet back up. And you'll say, well, hey, we fought down the road. Yeah, but look at him. He's fighting for the same thing.
Absolutely. Speaking of police, when you guys see a cop, what is your reaction as men of color? Do you kind of panic, or do you not think anything of it?
Oh man, well that's a good one because I was just talking to my wife about it earlier, and here is my answer. It is, and this is just a matter of survival. I don't know. There's no way to measure the cops' capacity for empathy. There's no way to measure any of those things. There's no way to tell the type of person he is, what he thinks, what his ideology is, and honestly, my thing is act as white as possible. I mean, everything, from the way I posture myself to, and it's not even a like look like a white person. It's more so like, fit that stereotypical mold of what a pronounced white individual is. That way, I feel like I would have a better chance, just in case for whatever reason I'm seen as some type of creature or animal. But that's just my reaction.
And do you think you are married to a white woman? She's beautiful, and you have a beautiful baby. Does she? How does she deal with that? Does it upset her that you have to kind of put on that facade?
Oh, of course. I mean, she doesn't. She's just at a loss sometimes, and we have tough conversations, and the product is always, she's not. Of course, she doesn't try to instruct or tell me what to do, but she's just concerned, and for her, she sometimes, she just can't put it into words. She just knows that me going out and being in the world. I mean, even just recently, here's an example. I have in my car, one of my headlights that went out. And I think I start work around 3 o'clock in the morning. I go to work around 3 o'clock. I get up and leave around 3, and I have to be there by around 4 o'clock. And the issue is, when the headlight went out, she was the first person to get it fixed, get it fixed. And, it's not coming from a place of just get your headlight fixed. It's more from a place of, if you get pulled over, you just don't want that situation, and I don't want it. So there's always concern, and, and she finds a way to address it. And, I appreciate it, but no, I get it.
Wow. Justin, how about yourself?
Wow, that's heartbreaking that someone goes through
It
something
is.
like that. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
When you see police officers, how do you carry yourself? Does your demeanor change? Do you get fearful?
So I come from a rural suburban background where my initial interaction with police officers was always waving at them as they passed by us in the car. We were taught that they were the good guys. And we were taught that if the police stopped you, it's because you did something and you must comply. Now, that was instilled in us on top of the 2 strikes from birth law. One that you're male, two that you're black. But we were always told that if you're going to have any involvement with them, always comply. Same as you would always respect your mother and your father, treat them the same way. And on the surface of that is no problem. But when you start zooming in on this out of the larger picture and you start honing in on the smaller photo, and this goes from the transition from rural South Carolina to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is an emerging metropolis in the country, where now our involvement with the police was look out your front door and you see them chasing people down the road. They're flying by all day long. Everything that we saw on TV, we now see outside of our front door. And, I'm scary as it is. So, I'm not going to go out and initiate no confrontation with them. And fortunately, so far, so good. They've never came up and just picked issue with me. Even during the Charlotte protests, when I would, in their face, holler, screaming, yelling, and all that good stuff. Philly protests, I did the same thing, and they never, picked any fights. They never, beat me bloody and all that good stuff. So, but I do speak out in concern of others who won't approach a police officer in the same difference that I will. I'm going to approach a police officer anyway, the same way I would approach either one of you, with the utmost respect. But I have a friend, who police officer, hey, young man, first thing he would fuck you up, excuse my language, what the F you want in effort, yada, 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 yada. Yes, they're trained to de-escalate that situation, but they're human beings as well, right? And they're capable of making the wrong decision. It's a bad situation. It's a bad scenario all the way around, which is why I encourage people to get involved in their local politics, where they can handle these policing matters at a local issue, where they have a greater impact versus on a national level.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. Don't take it that way.
Right.
But my take on the police is it comes from a place where and to preface this, I will say that most of my interactions with police officers has been positive. Nothing's gone wrong. I just don't like to chance it. And but it's an entire system that's just completely designed to animalize African Americans. And what makes that more difficult is that I have 3 friends that are now police officers, and and I've seen the change in them. It becomes a situation where they are where they have to choose their community or their friends or their brothers, which are their fellow officers. And what and the issue I've seen, and what I completely do understand, is that you have a community of people that are already biased against you, even if they're the same color as you, that think that, you don't care about them and you think their life is worthless. And then you have people that are also, you have fellow officers that depend on you for their survival. So when you come down, when it all gets boiled down, a lot of the times they choose their fellow officers. And we had a police officer, Joy, I'm pretty sure you know about him. He was in police. He was a Baltimore City officer that left policing because he saw about all the bad things that were happening. I forget his name. And he told you, if you wanted to report or say, hey, this guy isn't doing it right, he targeted someone individual, you will lose your protection. You would be out in the middle of wherever in a dangerous situation. You call for backup, and the police just wouldn't be there for you because you were the rat inside the system. And it's difficult because it doesn't allow for the freedom of objectivity. It doesn't allow you to judge things on an individual basis. It doesn't allow you to say, hey, this is wrong, I don't like this, maybe we can do it this way, because you either go with the flow or you become a target yourself as a police officer. And in a job like that, I wouldn't want to be a target. I had applied to be a police officer when I was 19 years old. And when I was about 70% through the process, I just stopped because I knew I couldn't morally or ethically proceed knowing what I was getting myself into. I don't know what type of person I would become today, but I can guarantee you it's not a system one person or even 5 or 6 people can individually change. It's something where, and I'm sorry if I'm ranting, but I did want to bring attention to along those lines. I do a lot of reading, and I don't know if you know, but it was Nixon, President Nixon, one of his, because I have it, his domestic policy chief, John Richmond, actually admitted that the war on drugs was targeted towards black people and white hippies that he knew would never vote for him. And and when you see things like that, it's not only is it disheartening, it lets you know that there's always an agenda behind policy. And originally, police law enforcement didn't want to get involved in the war on drugs. But in 1984, Congress amended a federal law enforcement agencies to retain and use any and all proceeds from asset forfeiture and to allow state police agencies to retain 80% of the asset values. And this is true because one of my friends is a police officer, I won't say his name, of course, he told me, when they do a raid, they don't have to return all that money, and there are police departments that are starving of resources. So only 20% has to go back to the federal government. 80% gets kept by the department. So when you have that type of incentive, especially from a department that needs funds, and it'll just incentivize, hey, we know the local drug dealer, we know the local kingpin, let's bust him up, let's take everything he has. That's what makes it difficult. So it's a huge monster that you have to attack from all angles. And I know it'll be tough, but I do encourage any officer to, get with his union, get with, anything he can, get the community behind him first, and then you can start community policing again. Sorry to take up so much time, but
no, right on. One of our viewers, Charles Lovett, brings up a really good point. Back in Rodney King beating, we were horrified by that footage. It was disgusting. It was so disturbing. And we hadn't really seen anything like it. And now, I mean, it's everywhere. It's nonstop. And also something that's really bad with the internet is a lot of times they end up taking the victims and making them criminals.
Yeah.
Justin, what's your take on that? How do you react to that?
Well, so I've recently been coming to terms with my mortality, and I've been coming to terms with the long, rich history of black men being killed here in America. And what a fitting day that we all gather for this conversation. It's almost you're in a perilous, I guess, where you don't know if you're waiting to live, you don't know if you're waiting to die. You just don't know. I don't think anyone wakes up any day and say, "Oh, it's a nice day to go get killed by a police officer." But you find yourself in a no lose, no win situation when any police interaction, right? Because first and foremost, their word reigns supreme. What they say go, and a stroke of their pen will change your life. It would really change your life. Uh, for the most part, what we've been doing so far, and I'm not minimizing none of those that we've lost. That's not what I'm doing. But for the most part, it seems like we're doing good. There's not a mass slaughter of us, right? Um, so I would say keep up the good work, and I know that bar is very low. I know it's very low. Um, but if appeasement saves one life, then appeasement it is. Curse him out after he leave. Do whatever you're gonna do after the fact, but just, I mean, stay alive is my thoughts on the matter. I know that's it's no comfort. Um, I know we have cases where every procedure was followed by the victim, and still they found themselves killed. It's a no win situation. It honestly is, and it's one of those that I unfortunately don't have an answer to.
Yeah.
Um, Other than keep the conversation going and expand it and filibuster this damn thing until we come up with a solution.
Absolutely. What is something you guys have experienced personally, as gentlemen of color, which has permeated, just stayed with you throughout the years? Something that, just no matter how you try to move on, it's something that still resonates with you. Terrell, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, as far as things that resonate with me, um, it for me it started. I want to say when I went to college. Um, you get when you're in grade school, things are a certain way, and you think that's just the way things are because that's just the world, and to a degree it is. But grade school, kind of gives you like this watered down version of history, and and it's safe, for kids, it's safe to read. When I went to college and started objectively learning more, I was actually able to see the biases after reading about them. You don't see them at first because as anybody in any situation, you kind of learn to cope. So, when I went in retail stores and I would be followed around by whoever worked there, for the longest time, I thought that was normal. I thought that was, hey, they don't know if I'm, it's so weird because you kind of victim blame yourself at a certain point because you're like, hey, they don't know if I'm going to steal. I could if I wanted to, but they don't know. And you rationalize it that way. But once you get a better worldview, a more expanded worldview, you start to see like, no, it's not that anybody can steal. It's that you specifically, as a black individual, might be suspected of stealing, and that's when it stuck with me. And even living here in Southern York County, Pennsylvania, um, moving from Baltimore, you would think that, hey, they say Baltimore is this big dangerous city, and in some ways it is. It's its own jungle, but there's a different jungle here, and the jungle that I live in now is one where, I don't know if some of my neighbors particularly don't like me. There's even a thing where and there's a gray area in some places, and the gray area is weird because on the way home, there's a person with a Confederate flag, a Blue Lives Matter flag, just planted in their yard. And when I was campaigning and door knocking, automatically I'm like, I'm not knocking on their door, right? But then there are situations where there'll be people that will have a Confederate flag on their truck, ABC, and you'll be in a situation where you kind of have to talk to them because they'll pass you by and they'll say, hey, and they'll be like, hey, what's going on? And what occurred to me is that their perception of racism is completely different than what I perceive as racism and what I know is racism. And it's because what they think is racism is what they read in the books. The stuff you can see, the visible things, beating on black people and, calling them names. That's what they perceive as racism. But they don't understand that, like anything that's infectious, there's a strain of it. And they don't even understand that they're infected by that strain, even enough so that if something were to happen, they would look at me first and say, hey, I think he did it. So, that's what stuck with me more so these days. The people that really, really, truly, and honestly don't believe that they're racist, but they don't know that they're infected with that strain that persisted, after Jim Crow and civil rights movement.
That is an amazingly good point. That's not enough people think about that. Justin, how about yourself?
Hold on, Terrell, you say you're in Pennsylvania?
Yes, Southern York County.
And they have rebel flags up there?
Oh, yeah. You need to come
we have
visit.
them all over PA.
York County was one of the difference makers in the 2016 election, painted the red wedding.
Absolutely. So, yes. I've come to terms with the fact that no matter how far I go in life, no matter what level I reach, to some people, they'll never be able to get past my skin color. And those people aren't limited to just fair complected individuals. Racism is a multi-edged sword. And what people don't want to talk about is the racism within the community of color. People don't want to talk about it. And it perpetuates this ideology that devalues human life to sustain its for-profit system. When you have a rapper that glorifies killing black-on-black crime, it's perpetuating white supremacy. It's perpetuating a system that says, "Oh, that life don't matter," and it almost gives justification to the outsiders to come in, and because it's dividing for the conquer. So I realize that a lot of people, when addressing this subject, they don't do it with any serious intention. Because, like Terrell said, they do it from the textbook classic of what they can see. You have to zoom in deeper to that you can't see. I had to realize that it wasn't that long ago that I had to accept the fact that I was a racist so that I could change my behavior. And because when it was first brought to my attention, oh, I'm black, how can I be racist? Oh, I'm not racist. Mm-hmm. And then I began to identify a lot of the racist mentalities, laughing at somebody who's worse off, who's in a worse position than you are. White supremacy, racism is perpetuated because the poor white folk must always feel that they're always better than the best blacks. The different shades of blackness. Where I remember laughing at darker skinned individuals and being encouraged by my grandparents and my parents to laugh at dark skinned people because we were light skinned. And we were told that, our shots were better than them. Than theirs were. It's a lot of small micro acts and thoughts that contribute to the overall picture of racism. And now I'm more conscious of this. Therefore, I'm better able to navigate. Does that make any sense to you, Joy? I want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm scanning the comments too, and you guys are getting a lot of love. So people are definitely appreciating you.
Okay, I want to make sure that makes sense to you in the audience. So it's a lot that we do as people of color to perpetuate the system, and until we start talking about this, how can you get one of the greatest examples is whenever you talk about, police brutality, one of the first rebuttals you're going to get is black on black crime.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and people get, oh, well, it's such and such, and they start excusing it. And I used to do the same thing until it took a person who sat back and said, did you just hear what you said? You just excuse this behavior, this door. No, excuse me. He said, you just approve the crack in the door that allows the other forces to come in for the conquer. And so, I've come a long ways, but I still have a ways to go. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm never against learning and self reflection. I'm always for uh, the advancement of my conscious self and my conscious being. And I realized that the first step in knowing anything is to know that you don't know nothing.
Right on. So I digress a bit, but I do want to talk about the 2016 election in a certain regard that I've never heard anyone talk about on camera. Uh, so I've talked about it with people in person, but here's something as I guess as a white person or I'm not sure, but something I myself and some of my friends just don't understand. Why do you think so many people of color voted for someone as racist as Hillary Clinton over someone who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. and was arrested for civil rights? Why do you think that they chose someone who's just so racist over someone who's just is fighting for us all?
Well, I think that's a pretty
I
easy.
see your face. You could go.
I think that's a pretty easy one to answer for me, at least. When I'll even take it as far back as to say, when we talk about Martin Luther King and his messaging, right? When you hear his messaging, what's advertised and what's everywhere is, everybody get along, let's do this, let's do that. They take out parts of his speech, especially when he turned on the establishment. Now, you don't hear Malcolm X's speeches, and I remember Malcolm X actually, gave a lot of African American individuals a warning as a people. He said, beware of liberals. He said liberals they'll tell you nice words to you, but they'll actually help you become more complacent. And it's true. And the thing with Hillary Clinton is, Bill Clinton, it's her husband. He black people loved him in the 90s. He smoked weed. I mean, what's not to love on a social aspect, And he did throw some social bones to, African Americans and people, poor people in general. But I think it goes back to the textbook things. It's what you can see and what you don't see. So he was able to structurally break down the African American community, building off of Nixon's drug war and Reagan's perpetuation of the drug war. He was able to build on that. He said it was an unintended consequence, but to this day I haven't seen him do anything to try to combat it, which makes me feel like it's not sincere. So there's an overall in the black community, there's a love for the Clintons, and I grew up in a family that some of them liked them, some of them didn't, but overall the community, they love the Clintons. He hung with black people. To this point, you couldn't get a white person on stage with a black person, much less a presidential person that's trying to represent the whole nation. So that was as far as we had come to that point. Hey, we got a black person, we had a white guy that loves us, it's good. But keeping people ignorant and having them not know about what's happening with policy, you know what I mean? Schools, African American schools have always suffered. So you can always say it's an educational issue as well. What's being taught to our kids? How objective are they taught to be? So when you have a politician that says all the right things and you have messages from Malcolm X that were just like pushed away into the side that you have to like dig through to look for. And before this wonderful thing called the internet, we had to dig through tapes, much less if you had them and knew the message or read a book about it, you wouldn't know. So the appeal was there. And for Bernie, I caught on Bernie. I love the guy. And, he was still pretty much in the black community a nobody. It's like, yeah, we heard you much for black people, and it could be proven. But when did the message get there? What did it get there too late? I mean, because when you look at him now, he has a majority of the black support, over the Clinton machine, which is great, but it takes time, So the history of the Clintons is what prevailed, not so much as the credibility of Bernie.
Absolutely. How about yourself, Justin?
It's it's that same mystery that I asked myself, and I mean no offense to anybody out there, but why black people hold Jesus Christ so near and dear to their heart? I can't wrap my head around it. I've tried to come at this subject from every aspect. Because during the 2016 elections, I was actually on the ground in North Carolina, and I was, canvassing for Bernie. And I mean, everything that they would throw at me, well, Bill Clinton was good for the economy. Well, most, African Americans are employed in the blue collar sector, which was the hardest hit by NAFTA. He was great for black people, the crime bill, the Brady bill. You go down the list, but I think it was the name recognition that did him in ultimately, because he had a presence in those southern states. And there was an campaign apparatus there, but I mean, it's like you go and tell them, the facts of Jesus don't add up. It's just la 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 la, flee from me, Satan. Get out of here. So I don't know. I hopefully it's personally, I think if most of them did a political identification test, they'd find themselves as conservative Republicans. But I don't know. I can't. I mean, as a black person in the South, also as any vote blue no matter who person, I just realized there was a stark difference between Bernie and Hillary, and I just couldn't rely on no left wing talking point to make my decision for me. But I just don't think there was enough time. I think if he'd had more time, he probably could have prevailed. Oh, we were so close. Oh God, I just think about that all the time. Like we had 43% of the vote, 23 states. We were almost there.
I think it was 46. I think it was 46, wasn't it?
46.
Yeah,
46%.
46.
Yeah, we were.
That's what people act like we lost. I'm like, wait a second, we were almost halfway.
We were there. We were almost there. I'll never forget that drive from Philadelphia. I cried.
Oh yeah, I was there too.
I can't deal with President Trump. It took like 12 hours, but I was outside of Virginia, and I was like, okay. Well, I was in Virginia, outside of North Carolina. I was like, okay, it's over. But to answer your question, I couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't. And we need to figure out these answers for in preparation for 2020. But I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think now Byrne does have so much more of a name recognition, which is great. I think Black Men for Bernie did a really good job. I met a lot of them. They were great guys, just going around the country and meeting people and exposing people of color to Bernie. And yeah, hopefully now, if he, fingers crossed, does run again, we actually have the name recognition and stuff like that. But I definitely took it upon myself to post a lot of those hot sauce videos and that Hillary was talking about, and the Black Lives Matter girl that she totally disrespected, and all those things, to just kind of, I don't think a lot of the people realized that information was out there. So now I think people are becoming way more privy to it. As far as what do you guys think that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would say if he was here today with President Trump, like with so much racism and so much hatred? How do you think he would be reacting right now?
Well, I actually think his reaction, and of course I can't speak for someone that's no longer here with us, but my opinion in that would be his reaction would be no different than what he gave us, shortly before he was assassinated. Things haven't changed that much in the political arena. we haven't had any fundamental change since his death. We're talking about a system that's been deadlocked ever since money incident. And I do think that his messaging would shift a little bit because he would understand the influence of money in politics. That would probably be the only difference. I mean, if you were to, I mean, of course, if you look at any of his speeches, and especially the ones he made later on in his life, they were attacking the system, and they were. He will be a little more Malcolm X-ish, and saying, you can't trust people who say nice things to you. He even proclaimed the United States as the biggest purveyor of violence in the world. So when you take all that, the message still applies today. It's just not what's advertised. So I don't think it would have changed that much. I do think the influence of money in politics would have played a little a role in what he spoke on, but I do think it would have pretty much been the same.
He would be disgusted by Trump.
I'm sure. I'm sorry, guys. I just want to interject one second. Tibero, I am not sure what you are talking about. No, Tavero.
Oh.
I was at occupied DNC for 7 days in 100-degree heat, protesting the cheating, walking miles every single day. So no, I don't work for Hillary, and I was stating a fact that people think that he didn't win, that many votes. I'm saying even with the election fraud, he still got 46% of the vote. So please, can you just ask to clarify if you'd like, instead of calling me a shill? Because that's pretty much the worst insult you could call someone as devout to Bernie as I am. So sorry, guys, I had to interject there because I don't think I've ever been called a Hillary supporter before, which is basically the ultimate insult to me. I'm sorry, Justin, go ahead.
So who's the ignoramus that would call you of all people?
I know. I don't know. Someone very mad at something.
I agree with Terrell. The influence of money in politics has created a system that's profit-driven. And it's in every aspect of our life. We live in a profit-driven society. And remember, Dr. King spoke out against the rugged individualism that the country has for the little man and the unabashed socialism it has for the wealthy man. But I do think that he would have his capacity to retain the attention span of.
Did we lose you? Oh, there he goes.
Hello? Okay. I think his capacity to retain the attention span of the American people, I think that would have been greatly utilized, by him. I think we would be further along as a society had he lived. But I think his movement and his message was hijacked by people like John Lewis, who used it for personal gain.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think his children trade on his name as much as John Lewis does. I mean, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson used to trade on it pretty, heavily, but nowhere near the level of John Lewis. So that's my thought with this. So there's that.
Yeah, I don't like John Lewis. I'm just putting that out there.
Oh, he's no good.
I don't like him.
I mean, you have to ask yourself, like, he's been in Congress 30 years. Like, his district, oh my God, like, the wealth just surrounds the 5th district. And, little old inner city Atlanta, just have to sit and live amongst all this immense, prosperity in some of the most disgusting levels of poverty known to of any industrialized nation.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just some great, civil rights hero. And I'm like, well, ask Tamir Rice's mom that if he's a civil rights hero, ask, Freddie Gray's family if he's a civil rights hero. Stephon Clark more recently. if he's a civil right, I can't stand the man, and I'm not even gonna, And so my left wing friends, they get on me whenever I start, bringing up these issues with him. But I mean, if he's going to put himself on that, that platform, that pedestal, well then be prepared for the criticism that comes with it. And sorry, but I'm sorry, I don't feel that he's done anything in the 50 years that has elapsed since King was killed, and now, and he's supposed to be the heir, apprentice, and he's what? We're still fighting the same fight. 50 years later, it survived all these generations, and now I'm having to fight for my life, my very survival, and the survivals of others, whether it's little white kids in Parkland, innocent little kids on the playground in Chicago, wherever the case may be.
I think you bring up a point that I mean, something I didn't think about until you just said it, is that people have this reflective memory of what someone did in the past and assume that their character they currently are based on that. So, you have him that, yeah, okay, you were in the civil rights movement. What have you done since then? How have you progressed it? Where's your voice? I don't see you out there, and that's the thing. If anything, I respect on anybody is consistency, right? You have to, whoever you are and who I want to say, I can't even find a word, or who you acknowledge yourself as, that's the person you should be. And if you're not consistent in that, you know what I mean? I think people need to shake that mentality where, they're looking at something you did 40, 50 years ago and say, that's who that person is. No, you don't know who that person became. And, and paying attention, and I've turned into a geek for, I go to congress.gov all the time and I'm looking at legislative records, and I can honestly tell you, you know what I mean? He votes, he has a good rating on the incremental things, but when it comes time to put your name in the hat for something that's going to make waves, he's absent.
Medicare for all, reparations, all type of bills that Dr. Conyers, John Conyers sponsored, and he's nowhere to be found. He's like a pony for the Democratic Party. They only bring him out whenever they want him to say, "Oh, look, we're not racist. Look at us. Look who's on our side."
I wouldn't be surprised if they said, "Hey, we got you, man. Like, you were a civil rights guy, so we need you here, but don't do anything." I wouldn't even be surprised at this point because that's kind of where it is. It's like
look at his bank account. Look at his personal
show.
finances. It's greatly enriched since the 1960s.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's only went up.
Was it Truman who said the only people that come out of government are rich are criminals? I believe it was him.
Very true.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Jackson brought up a good point. He said that Lewis cozied up to DWS, an establishment, and that's totally true. When they asked him why he wasn't supporting Bernie, because he was at the same march as him, and he goes, "I've never met Bernie," and then here comes a picture with them with their arms around each other. Oops.
I remember that.
Oh my God!
Your head was half of your brain is on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Of course, you don't remember a damn thing.
These guys are paid to be that way. There's no other way to put it.
And then he goes, "Oh, look at me! I'm Harry Potter. I have a scar." I hate that. I hate that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, better people have died for less than that.
Of course. No, he's pretty much nothing to me anymore. He's not. I don't know. I don't know what grasp. I mean, of course, it's just money, but I'm not sure exactly how to reconcile that. Except for I hope he gets voted out. I want him gone. John Conyers.
People are so stupid down there in that district. You couldn't pay them to realize that they're their own worst enemies.
Don't be fair. Be fair. Be fair. I don't think it's the people necessarily being stupid. I don't think it's the people being stupid. I always think.
For that district, the 30 years that he's been their representative. If that's not stupid, then show me smart.
Well, it's the same, but in my opinion, it's the same thing that the Clintons had. It's that loyalty. It's saying, "Hey, this is what you did in the past, and this is why we're keeping you." Now, I want to preface that by saying, I don't want to call it stupidity, because my thing is I never want to shame the electorate. I don't want to make the electorate feel bad.
It's like Louis Gohmert constituents in Texas first. They're dumb people. Okay. I mean, Louis Gohmert's constituents, he's like the dumbest person in Congress. Steve King constituents, they're stupid people. The problem is we tiptoe around these dumbasses and
Well,
we show the world. Go ahead.
well, I have no problem calling the politicians stupid because they are. But I don't think the people that vote for them, though, these are people that,
You
are
telling smart
purposefully,
people.
these people are purposefully steered in the wrong direction. I don't,
Smart
of course,
people.
I don't look at, of course, I don't look at Fox News. I don't even look at liberal media a lot. But the fact that there's a chance that I may have, you drinking the Kool-Aid, you know what I mean? And you take it as the truth because think about it like this. If you are a person struggling and you go to work, you have kids, you have all these responsibilities, you don't have time to open up a book and read legislation, you kind of take their word for it. And even if your life is going bad, they have a million and one excuses as to what the problem is. And a lot of times the scapegoating minorities and people and our Hispanic brothers and sisters or people to south of the border. So you take their word for it, and you intuitively feel like something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it because you don't understand the rhetoric and the legislation that led to it. So, you know, and that's my stance on it. I don't want to call those people stupid. I've met people that are really stupid. I've met people that are stupid, but because I don't know them, and I do think I call it political abuse. I think there's some form of political abuse going on. The same thing with domestic violence. Yeah, a guy could beat on a woman, and she can believe that she's the person that's wrong in the stretch of it because the abuse becomes so normal. So when you have people that are so far removed from you, not even in your family, but they're politicians, and they're telling you, "Hey, this is what I want to do for you," and every time something goes wrong, they say, "This is why it didn't happen," and you don't have the time because you dedicate all your life energy into keeping your family afloat, keeping your house good. At that point, you know what I mean? You're pretty much lost, but I don't think it's that much fault of your own. I do want you to be more informed, which is why we have to do more to keep our electorate informed.
Absolutely. Um, you guys definitely have to see the comments after we're done because people are loving both of you. They're saying you guys were the perfect picks for this, so it's awesome. I had a good feeling about you guys. So if there's something you want to leave with our viewers, if just like a final note on where you hope to go from here, what you would like us to kind of ruminate on and take from this.
Okay.
Terrell, you could go.
Oh, of course. I want to. This is what I'll do, and because people can play this back, I want to because a lot of us have friends, and I have white friends, I have black friends, but then there are people that have friends that they can't really explain things to, and I came up with this. It's like kind of not a story, but kind of like a metaphor for the whole thing for racism, and I did this. I've written it down about 2 years ago. And I looked at it recently in preparation for the show, and I was like, hey, that still can apply. And it's not long at all. It might take me about 1 minute to read the entire thing, but you can run it back. And so here it is. Okay. Now I said, think of slavery as the one house and neighborhood that fell in a sinkhole. Over time, it becomes illegal to sell that property through the land because although the landlord finds ways to do it anyway, known as sharecropping and Jim Crow laws that were created after emancipation. Although the House becomes condemned after more laws are passed, which will be the 14th and the 15th Amendment in the late 1960s, people still live there. They don't want to live there, and they know the property is worthless. They can't grow any food or have access to basic plumbing like their neighbors, but they're expected to pay bills. With the exception of a few, their neighbors say things like, why don't they just move? Or it's their fault for letting the property get so bad. Their neighbors forget that they were forced into a doomed property, and although the laws have changed, nothing fundamentally was done to make things better. If all the neighbors band together, condemn this house, and refuse to let these people suffer, the city and the state would have to step in and put these people on a property that actually has a good foundation, as the law states. And that was a metaphor I came with, and that kind of no, and that was a metaphor I came with because that's pretty much what it is. And as time moved on, we have companies like Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, places like that that were actually able to benefit a lot from slavery, and they have corporations now, and they have things to pass on to their children.
Yes.
Now we have black people who may have done all the work, but because you were left with nothing, there's nothing to pass on. There's nothing of value to pass on. We know property is the biggest indicator of prosperity in the United States. So when people look at black people and say, "Hey, why don't they just bootstraps and have all these things to say?" It's like, nah, we started off, not having anything, and we're used to having nothing. So now it's a matter of, no, people need to come together and say, hey, if everyone contributed to the, construction of this country, then everyone should reap the gains from it.
Awesome. How about yourself, Justin?
I'll end on the note of collectiveness, where it's imperative, you guys, those of you that are watching this, those of you that's going to take this message back into your communities, to be the force of good in opposition to this system of racism, where if you see it taking place, don't turn a blind eye. Stop engaging in the ostrich act. I myself used to do it. I used to really believe that if I buried my head into the sand and not see things, it'll go away. It's not going to happen. He said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And we can't continue to turn our blind eye to these issues that are plaguing this great land of ours, no matter what the issue may be, and expect these issues to go away. It's just going to continue to compound and compound and compound and fester and fester and fester. And then we're going to find ourselves at a boiling point, and it's just all going to come surfacing now. I can't tell you what your truth is, but whatever it is, you speak it. And thank you. That's all for me.
Awesome. Do you guys, some people are asking for Twitters and stuff. Do you guys want to give out your Twitter names or anything like that?
It's at ATW underscore JJS13.
Okay. And mine will be Moral Politics
I'll
1.
put it on here.
Or you can look up my name, Terrell Turner, and Moral Politics 1.
Awesome. I could not have picked two better people. You guys are amazing. I absolutely adore both of you. Thank you guys so much. This isn't done nearly enough, just raw discussion. So thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Check
Thanks
this
for
off my
having
bucket list.
You guys have a great night. And again, please check out the comments because you guys are definitely getting a lot of love.
Oh, well. Thank you so much. Good night,
Absolutely. Joy. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care, Justin.
And thank you guys for watching.
Smoke break.